Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Saturday, October 10th, 2020. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Sugar Shane Caldwell, and we are here for the Week 5 main slate. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to go position by position, help you build out your DFS lineups. Shane, how are you feeling here about Week 5?
Man, it's amazing. We're pretty much on the same page here. We've done a lot of research and journey as things change throughout the week, and I think we're really locked into these these game scripts and the players that we want to target here. So yeah, it's looking like a really good slate. And I think we have some players that are in a great spot that are fairly lower owned, and we'll be joining along some of the chalk plays too. But I think we have some excellent plays here, and really good perspective on this slate in terms of the way our research and all our work has panned out for us here so far. So yeah, this is looking like a great slate for us in Week 5.
Yeah, and we hand build our lineups here at DFS Coach Talk. We put everything together, including watching the games, and try to hand build lineups that will help our members win. Off to a great start here on the main slate this season, 80% winning rate across DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo. And if you want to join us with the lineups, just go to dfscoachtalk.com, pick up one of our memberships there. We'll get you right into our Discord. We give out the lineups about 45 minutes before kickoff, and we can give out full lineups on FanDuel. So we give out a cash lineup and a GPP lineup. And then over on DraftKings, we give out the coach's clipboard with some core plays highlighted and a bunch of pivots to help you build your lineups. And then the Yahoo hybrid lineup, we give out that as well. So love to have you join us, dfscoachtalk.com for membership. And before we get into the quarterbacks, I want to thank our presenting sponsor here, BetUS.com.pa. Love our partnership with them. Great place to go for all your sports wagering and casino action. Make sure to use the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, when you make your first deposit at BetUS. All right, Shane, let's get into the quarterbacks. And we've got some high totals this week. 5 of the 10 games left on the main slate with all these moving parts. 5 of the 10 are over 50. So we're hoping for some shootouts, and we're going to get some exposure to those games. So how are you ranking the quarterbacks here in Week 5?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start up the top with probably the best quarterback in the league. I got to start with Patrick Mahomes here. He's in a good spot. He's at home against the Las Vegas Raiders here. Raiders don't really have much of a pass rush. They're not really their corners inexperienced. Their secondary's not good. I don't see how they match up with these guys. And he just has plenty of weapons to go around. So I don't see how the Raiders can stop Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs here. So he just set up for a monster game here, and he's a guy I'm more than willing to pay up for. You're not going to see a lot of really expensive position players in this slate, and there's a lot of good mid-value price players. So you can get up to Patrick Mahomes here. And I think he is probably one of the best plays in the slate, even at the expensive price. I think he's totally worth paying up for. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is one of those high totals. 55 is the over-under at betus.com.pa. And Mahomes has, lit up the Raiders here. The recent matchups when he's faced them. And like you said, there's just no way they can stop all those weapons. So to me, it's more just a question of how do they get in the end zone? Is it through the air, or is it Clyde Edwards-Helaire? So that's the only downside. But I agree with you, in terms of the pricing, especially on DraftKings overall, it's more, to me, a week where you want to look at mid-tier guys for your running backs and wide receivers so you can afford Mahomes without crippling the rest of your lineup.
Yeah, and it seems like they're very efficient in the red zone, obviously, Kansas City is. So they haven't been they haven't been as good rushing inside the 5-yard line there. So there could be due for some positive regression, which is why we're going to talk about CEH in a little bit here, that we do like him as a play. But you could actually pair Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Mahomes, because Helaire is just going to continue to get more and more involved in the passing game. So he's a guy that one of those rare running backs that you could stack with Mahomes there. It's not usually an ideal correlation, but you could do that here. So definitely, I think Mahomes is great for cash and GPP. You could play Mahomes naked in cash game because you never know which weapon he's going to hit.
That's right.
That way, if he doesn't hit, if you're trying to stack him with Tyreek Hill and he hits Mecole Hardman or even Sammy Watkins or something for a deep pass, you're still covered and you're not completely out of your cash lineup then, in terms of that correlation. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here is definitely like Patrick Mahomes. And then, we go right to the other, for the MVP caliber guy here is Lamar Jackson. I know he was kind of banged up, throughout the week, but he did get a full practice in. And I think this guy's just good enough where he might be better just not practice, just going out there running around, slinging the ball around. Because I know he hasn't had a great season so far this year, but he is going up against Cincinnati's defense. And, I think that, he's up due for a lot of rushing yards in this game. And I think that he can finally maybe hit a couple of those deep shots that he's been missing to likes of Marquise Brown and some of these other guys. So I think if he can get the passing game going again and still get the running game, he's in for a massive, could be a massive ceiling game here. And I think you're going to get him a little lower ownership because he's expensive and he's got that questionable tag on him. So people are a little nervous about it. And there's some other super chalky quarterbacks right below him and right above him in Mahomes. So I think you can get Lamar Jackson at pretty low ownership, and he's in a blow up spot here. So I think that's why I think Lamar Jackson's a pretty good spot here too. So
next, yeah, excellent. So if you're not going to spend up at quarterback, who are you considering below that tier?
Yeah, you got your mid tier going right back to Deshaun Watson. We were on him last week. He had a really bad first half there, and then he came on and saved the day. But if he could just put together a full game here, he's in a nice spot. And maybe with the new coaching change, maybe they'll just kind of let it loose and open up the offense a little more without Bill O'Brien there. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. Is that with Bill O'Brien gone, that this offense actually clicks and looks better, and maybe if Deshaun Watson won't feel the weight of O'Brien, on the sideline there, because I don't know, they didn't seem to gel. The people didn't seem to like him. The players didn't. So this could be a positive boost for the whole Houston team. That's a talented team, and of course he's going against Jacksonville. That doesn't hurt at home, and so exactly. So he's in a great spot here, and he's a nice mid price there. He's 7,900 FanDuel, 6,900 DK. So it's hard to get away from him. And then at the lower end, I don't mind Matt Ryan. A lot of people aren't on Matt Ryan this week. So I think he's good for GPP stacks. I like stacking him up with, Calvin Ridley and Zacchaeus because you can get a cheap guy and the high-end guy, the double stack there, and then you can bring it back with the Carolina guys. So, we'll talk a lot about that game, how we love that. So I like Matt Ryan because I think he's actually could potentially get a higher breakout game than Bridgewater on the other side of that game, who we also like. At home, Matt Ryan's really good. He's got great weapons, and he's a good experience. I think Carolina's defense is okay, but I think Matt Ryan could definitely exploit them. They don't really have much of a pass rush, and if you give Matt Ryan time, he will pick you apart. So I like Matt Ryan because no one's really talking about him because there's so many other good plays, and I think he's going to be a little low owned here, and he could have a 4 touchdown type upside here. 300 plus yards and 4 touchdowns. That's what I'm looking at for Matt Ryan at low ownership here. And then I'll let you talk about the other side of this game here because I know it's the guy you like.
Yeah, so this is an over-under at BetUS that's bet up to 54. Just to hit on the Deshaun Watson play, that one's at 54.5. That's gone up a half point. So, this is a great place to look. And I am a little bit more interested in Bridgewater. He's a little bit cheaper on DraftKings, and that Atlanta pass defense is absolutely horrific. So, I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Bridgewater. I like your idea of using Ryan in that game for the reasons you mentioned in the GPP. So that makes sense to me as well. But bottom line is Bridgewater is going to be my guy here in a lot of lineups. And looking forward to hopefully he continues that trend of guys just absolutely torching Atlanta on the turf there. So.
He'll probably throw a couple touchdown passes to my guy Mike Davis. We'll see. Yeah. I just love it.
Yeah. Couple other cheap quarterbacks I want to mention. Well, I'll just go with one, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo, who, by all accounts here on Saturday night, he is going to play, and he's cheap. He's 5,500, and he's going against Miami, and they are terrible against the pass. And I think he's going to be absolutely lower owned. He's only 400 cheaper than Bridgewater. coming off an injury, but I don't see why he can't have a big game. If you could pair him up with Kittle, and I think that might be a good way to start in a GPP.
Yeah, I mean, I think San Francisco, yeah, is obviously by far the big favorites and should just blow away the Dolphins here. The problem is if they get up so big, is Garoppolo really going to have to sling it around much? And they got pretty much like if they get Mostert back and they got McKinnon, I mean, they got an awesome run game too, and they could pretty much just run right through Miami. Is the problem with that run game, So that's the only thing that I don't like about Garoppolo. But among the really low price guys, I think he's a great play there in GPPs. If you're playing multiple lineups, it's just you don't really have to go that cheap at quarterback because there's not like I said, there's not a lot of super expensive guys. And I think there's some position players that you can get for cheap that might have smash value a little bit better compared to the price. So I'm not going down too much at quarterback this week just because I don't think you have to. But I think Garoppolo is one of the better guys if you are going to go down there. If you want to just fit in a couple real high-owned guys, or high-priced guys. I mean,
absolutely. Any other quarterbacks you want to discuss, or should we transition to the running backs?
No, I think I'm pretty much narrowed down on the quarterbacks. I'm not trying to get too cute, with the quarterbacks here.
Yeah, you really don't need to pay down this week. A lot of good options there in those high-scoring games.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some backfields here. Who's catching your eye for Week 5?
Yeah, we talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, CEH, another good matchup, against the Raiders. Not great against the run. I noticed they're giving up a lot of passes to running backs as well. And again, I think just this guy's going to get more and more targets every single week. And he's just due for the positive touchdown regression here, whether it's through the air or on the ground. He's due to get a touchdown. I think he has one touchdown all year, which is really not very much for a guy that in an offense like this that's the most high-scoring offense in the league. So he's just due for positive regression here on the touchdowns. I think he's going to catch a ton of passes, and he's going to get a lot of work. They should have a lead and get a lot of work in the second half in terms of rushing as well. So I think that they can't really stack the box against this offense. I think that would be a mistake, So they're going to probably play that, too deep safety look, and have kind of some soft boxes. And I think the Chiefs have a pretty good offensive line. I like their run blocking, and I think the Chiefs running game with CEH will really take advantage of those soft boxes in this game. Even though obviously I like Mahomes too. So I think the bottom line is Kansas City their offense should just absolutely just annihilate these guys. And you want to get some shares of that offense. That's the bottom line. And this guy is basically the bell cow. And it's hard to find true 3-down back bell cow running backs in an offense this good in a good matchup. It's just hard to find those guys. So, and he's reasonably priced. He's not the most expensive guy. He's expensive, but he's worth paying up for. So that's where I'm at with CEH here.
Yeah, I'm all about CEH this week as well. And the thing, he just feels safer to me than the passing game in terms of the targets. Certainly Mahomes, like you said, you can play him naked. But with CEH, you feel like you're getting all the carries and you're getting catches out of the backfield. We saw what Kamara did to the Raiders through the air. So, for all the reasons you said, he's really high on my board. Anybody else up there? He's at 6,800 on DraftKings. Anybody else up there in the high 6K range you like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you talk about the other guy at the high 6K range because he's your Mike Davis.
Yeah. Well, I've got two guys up there, so maybe I should just jump on those. The first one,
ahead.
I'll go from top to bottom here. James Conner, 6,900 on DraftKings, and it's a decent matchup against Philly. They're solid against the run, but I just like his 2 weeks of rest here, and he's obviously a bell cow, so I'm going to get him in a bunch of lineups. And then the guy you're referring to with the chuckle there, of course, James Robinson. And I've been on him here recently, and now he gets Houston. They're number 32 against the run in terms of yards allowed per game. So you just can't get much of a better matchup on paper. And then they come out and Jay Gruden comes out and says they want to get him more touches in the second half. Why are you shaking your head?
Can you tell Jay Gruden to shut up already?
Yeah,
you
I know. Yeah.
Come on, this is not good for his ownership. We need James Robinson to fly under the radar, low ownership. Exactly. I know they're posting that on all the fantasy sites, and everything is posting the quote of, we want to get, we would love to get this guy more third and fourth quarter touches. I'm like, no, we don't need anyone to know about that. So I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but
but that's fine. We'll play him even if he's high owned.
Yeah, we were going to play him anyway. So there you have it. So yeah, I like all those guys, just under 7K on DraftKings. You can play all three of them. If you go down below that level, who do you like next?
Well, I like Kareem Hunt here. We talked about this early in the week. Indianapolis has a great defense. You do have to respect their defense, but the Cleveland running game is just, in my opinion, right now the best in the league. Okay, and now we have just one elite back in the backfield. So they are the number one offensive line for run blocking, adjusted line, scrimmage line yards, all the stats, every single grade. They're the number one run blocking. They have a great scheme, and Kareem Hunt is one of the top-rated running backs according to Pro Football Focus. I mean, he's one of the top-rated running backs of all. I mean, the average is like 5.5, yards per carry. So Kareem Hunt, and obviously what he can do in the passing game. So people may be afraid of this matchup, or they're thinking based on the usage last week that he's not going to get the full workload. But don't mistake it. He'll get a full workload. Indianapolis is missing their star linebacker, Leonard. He's going to be out for this game, and he's
Darius
one of their
Leonard,
guys. Yeah, Darius Leonard. And, the backup linebackers are not as good against the run. Darius Leonard's obviously a huge part of the middle of that defense. They still have a really good defensive line. I do respect them, but I think that the offensive line for Cleveland, I love their scheme, and I love their run blocking. And I think Kareem Hunt is just going to absolutely gash them. And I think that he's going to cause a lot of issues in the passing game, the receiving game too. And I think you get him a little bit lower ownership because there's perception that he's not going to get the full workload, or that he was injured, and that also the matchup is tough. So I think that Kareem Hunt is a great play this week, and I'm definitely all about Kareem Hunt. I know that's a tough matchup, but I think it's just too good a talent here.
Excellent. Well, the next guy in terms of price who you might want to consider is a guy named Davis from Carolina. Do you like him at all?
Yeah, I love Davis. The only problem is now, so I've been on Davis for how many weeks? 2 or 3 weeks? Whenever McCaffrey went out.
Right.
I was getting the benefit of him smashing value at a cheap price at super low ownership. Like last week, he was only like 18% owned, and I thought he should have been like 30 to 40% owned. Now this week, he's going to be super high owned. He's the number one owned, probably the highest owned guy in the entire slate. So the problem is that the secret's out again.
He is more expensive though. You talked about enjoying using him when he was below 6K. Now he's been priced up.
He's still way underpriced though for his role in the situation he's in. Even though he's priced up, like I was saying, I was joking. I don't care how much he is. I would still play him. No, this guy looks awesome in the passing and running game. He's got a good matchup in a high scoring game here, a back and forth game, and he literally just does everything. Like he's in the Christian McCaffrey role. Like he's going to probably be like 85 to 90% snap share in this game. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous. So you just, it's hard to get someone in the $6,000 range with that type of usage and that type of role in this offense. And he's talented. I mean, he looks great. Surprised the Chicago Bears let him go for, basically just let him go in free agency, a few years ago. So that's the only thing I don't like about him. He's high owned, but I think you eat the chalk there and you get different somewhere else there, because he's pretty much like a lock and load for me for Mike Davis, So he's just got a great role here, and he's going to do a ton of damage here. And I just like, he's so powerful when they get into the red zone. They'll just give him the ball in terms of getting those goal line touches and the red zone touches. He's just all over that. He's just really good with that. So so he's awesome.
I've got one more running back I want to talk about, and we can circle back and see if you have anyone else. It's David Johnson for me. He's 5,200 on DraftKings, and with the coaching change to Romeo Crennel, defensive-minded coach, it just wouldn't surprise me if they, really, rely on that running game. And it's a great matchup. The Jags are number 25 against the run, so he's in consideration for me. Would you consider playing him?
For some reason, I'm not loving, David Johnson. I think that they'll probably, they're going to obviously be productive through the air, but I'm still having a hard time trusting David Johnson because, like I explained earlier, the other D Johnson, Duke Johnson, I think Duke Johnson's going to cut into his snap share quite a bit this week. and it's getting closer to that, 60-40 snap share. I think Duke Johnson could actually get some carries and obviously take away a lot of that passing down work. So that's my issue with David Johnson is I think Duke Johnson's a lot better receiving back, and Duke Johnson could start getting carries. So, like I said, Bill O'Brien's not there anymore, so he doesn't have to prove that the trade was the best trade for David Johnson. So I don't think it's bad. It's a bad situation. It's a good matchup, and he's in a great spot here. I'm just not trusting his full workload. But, to your point, he is cheap, so it's not like you're paying way up for him, so he can do well. The guy I like in that price range probably the most would be Antonio Gibson from the Redskins. I just think
Washington football team.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to slip up and say Redskins. Yeah, from the Washington football team, so I just think that he's just a star. That's like he's just going to keep getting more and more snap share and more usage whenever he's in the game. Like he gets carries, they heavily use him. And Washington doesn't have anyone else really in terms of talent besides like Terry McLaurin. So like they have to, get him the ball. And if they're going to be competitive against the Rams, I don't think they want to have Kyle Allen drop back very often. Okay.
Right.
I don't think you want him to drop back and pass very often against this, Aaron Donald and those guys in the D line here. It's a bad matchup there. So I think you run the ball and you get Antonio Gibson, who's a bigger back compared to J.D. McKissic, who doesn't get early down work. So he's going to get a ton of work on the ground. And then when they get down, which they probably will be, he can catch those screen passes, and he's just explosive, and he's big, powerful back. So this guy's just a star in the waiting. So you want to try to play him before he has his huge breakout. He had a good game last week, but you want to try to hit his ceiling game before he's at high ownership and a higher price. And I think this is the week if you want to try to do that. It's a pretty tough matchup against the Rams, but I think that if Washington does get production, I think that would be one of the ways they can get it is through the running game and through Gibson here. So I like it.
Excellent. All right, Shane, you ready to transition to the wide receivers?
Yeah, let's do it.
We've talked about some of the quarterbacks we're interested in some of these high totals. Who are you looking in terms of targets to get out there and catch some balls and get in the end zone?
Yeah, I mean, I like the expensive guys at the top, so I don't mind. And there's some great value plays we'll talk about as well. But I like DeAndre Hopkins against that weak Jets secondary. The Jets are not going to have a very good pass rush at all. So I think Kyler Murray, he struggles a little bit when he's under pressure. Obviously, he can run around, but he should have a fairly clean pocket and be able to have some good passing lanes here against a weak pass rush and weak coverage. So I think DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't have a good game last week, but that was a much tougher matchup, I think that he's going to have a great game this week against the Jets. So he's in a great spot. So I think he's just going to get peppered with targets, and they're not going to be able to cover him. So I like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's worth paying up for here. I do like Calvin Ridley as well. I know some people are a little nervous about him because he was injured throughout the week, but he did get a full practice in. And he also put up a nice little goose egg last week. But keep in mind, I talked about this in the podcast. You probably remember I kept talking about Jair Alexander. I'm worried about Jair Alexander. So Jair Alexander shadowed him and pretty much shut him down. He might have been a little bit hobbled from his injury yet. So Calvin really didn't do anything. Some people might look at that and be afraid of that. But he's coming back home against Carolina, against a pretty weak secondary. It's a mismatch there. I know they've been decent against the pass, but I don't think people have had to pass on them. This should be a shootout game. So I think Calvin Ridley is going to have a massive, one of those 30-point ceiling type games here. I could see that from Calvin Ridley, and that's the type of games you need from these guys. And then you got Tyreek Hill also in the expensive range as well. He's pretty cheap on DraftKings too, by the way. He's quite the drop off compared to, $1,000 less than DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's in a great spot as well. So Tyreek Hill. So those are the expensive tier guys there. And then when you get into the mid tier guys, I think we both like Will Fuller, also in a great matchup here, against Jacksonville. And he's just due for another big game here. Like I said, I think Deshaun Watson's just going to let it loose. And Will Fuller is going to be able to just hit some of those deep passes and a lot of the intermediate stuff. And he's just their number one wide receiver. And I think that this could be a pretty high scoring game. It's looking pretty good there in the Dome down in Houston. So that's looking really good. So that's kind of where I'm at with some of these high price mid tier guys. And then a couple other guys I'll mention. I think Jameson Crowder is kind of interesting because I think he's going to be super low owned. I think that, Sam Darnold likes him, but I think Flacco will really like him across the middle a lot too. So even though Flacco's horrible, I think that they're going to have to pass quite a bit. They'd probably be down in this game against Arizona. So Crowder can really rack up some numbers, and they don't really have a good slot corner that can cover him. So I think that's a good matchup for him. So those are a couple guys I wanted to mention there on the more high and upper end. What do you think about some of these guys in the higher to upper end pricing?
Yeah, I'm with you in general. Ridley, I am a little concerned since he's been nicked up, but Julio is out. We assume that he's out. So certainly I see the appeal there. He's going to get more targets. But I do like Zacchaeus, minimum price on DraftKings. So he'll be in some lineups for me. But Hopkins and Fuller, they make a lot of sense to me as well. In that mid-tier range, I'll add Cooper Kupp here. 6,500, a solid matchup against the Washington football team. I obviously like both of the Carolina guys. They're in that mid-tier against Atlanta. Awesome matchup. So DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson are in play for me. And Darius Slayton, I'll throw him in there as a cheap guy. 4,800 on DraftKings. You can certainly attack Dallas through the air. And not a lot of faith in Jones, but that's a good price tag for a guy who had 2 touchdowns in week 1. And so they obviously have that chemistry.
Yeah, he's going to be super highly owned. Everyone's definitely on that. The fact that they've had a tough schedule, the New York Giants have, and now all of a sudden they got this great matchup against a disoriented Dallas Cowboys defense. That's the best way I can describe them. But you never know. Dallas might be able to at least contain those guys. So I don't know if I'm going to have a lot of that really chalky Darius Slayton. I think he's super talented, and I think he is in a great spot, but I just don't know if he's going to have a smash game here. And if you fade him and he does have kind of a dud of a game here, that's going to be a huge advantage for you because he's going to be ridiculously high owned because that super low price and the really high upside and the great matchup here. So I think here's a sneaky guy here that I don't think anyone is really on here. Let me see if I can find this guy on this over here. Laviska Shenault Jr. I think he's kind of interesting. I don't think he's going to be very, very highly owned. And he's a good guy you can bring back if you're stacking Deshaun Watson and Will Fuller and those guys. So you could even look at Brandon Cooks in that Houston game as well. So you could do, Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, big playmakers there, and bring it back with Laviska Shenault. So he should be on our guy. I say it's our guy because we always pick on this guy, Vernon Hargreaves in the slot. And that's a mismatch. This guy's Shenault is powerful and explosive in the slot, and they're just going to keep getting him the ball. He's getting more and more targets and more snap share, and he's just an absolute playmaker, and they're going to need him to keep pacing this game. So I look for them to get him involved and even get some running plays as well. So Laviska Shenault is 5,300 on FanDuel and 4,500 there over on DK. So that feels like a good low-owned kind of guy that could, he's the type of guy that can definitely take one to the house, and get a huge ceiling game for a cheap price at low ownership here. Yeah, so besides Alameda Zacchaeus, trying to pronounce that game, but he's obviously in a great spot here too, especially on DraftKings. The only problem is he's so underpriced on DraftKings. He's going to be super high owned, but it's kind of like a free square that you have to take there.
Right.
So you can definitely make the argument for Zacchaeus here. He's in a great spot. And I think, the Cowboys guys, CeeDee Lamb and Gallup are very interesting here. I think they're going to be pretty highly owned. I think they're in a great spot here as well. And then Russell Gage, I thought was interesting for Atlanta. I thought that he has a pretty good matchup, and he's been kind of cold the last couple of weeks. But if Julio's out, I think Russell Gage could really step up. He's got a great matchup in the slot against Carolina too. So those are a couple other guys that I've been looking at.
Yeah, and if you want to get different from Zacchaeus, you could use Jeff Smith for the Jets, another minimum price guy who stepped up last week. Flacco could try to hit him for some chunks, and that's assuming that Brashad Perriman is out, then you could look at Jeff Smith. So
the crazy thing is that the Jets could actually be better with Flacco in there, even though Flacco's been horrible the last few years, because Flacco doesn't see ghosts. He's not haunted by anyone. So that helps there a little bit. There's no ghost. He can kind of see the coverage better and hit the open receivers. So
it certainly helps.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, before we get to the tight ends and team defenses, let's take a quick break and hear from our partners at BetUS.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at BetUS.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sports book with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sports book that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.
Welcome back. Thank you again to our partners at betus.com.pa. Be sure to use that promo code CoachTalk. And this is a podcast that is in front of the paywall. So one favor we'd like you to ask, we'd like to ask you if you could just click the thumbs up on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. You will be notified when our podcasts post. We appreciate all your support. Shane, let's get into these tight ends here. Who are you targeting in week 5?
The tight end position is kind of ugly in general. I feel like I've been saying that about every week. And this week is just, there's going to be some super high owned. The tight end ownership percentage is extremely concentrated here. So obviously you're going to have your big guys, George Kittle. I don't need to talk a lot about George Kittle. If you saw what he did the last game, he was out there. Yes. And he's up against Miami now. So George
basically,
Kittle,
if you tuned into that game for any random 3-minute segment, he probably had 2 or 3 catches.
Yeah, he probably punched someone in the mouth and knocked him over. So that's basically what he was playing some volleyball out there. So you got Kittle. And then you at the high end, you got Kelsey. You can be a little different and pay up for Kelsey against the Raiders. It's a pretty good matchup there. So he's in a good spot. And then you got Waller, who's in that great spot because Kansas City's not good against tight ends, and they should likely be playing from behind and having to have a lot of pass volume, especially in the second half. So
yeah, Chiefs favored by 11.5 now with that over under at 55. So Raiders.
Yeah.
We expect them to be playing catch up.
Yeah, so they're just going to play a prevent defense if they get up by big points, and Darren Waller's just going to get a ton of passes. So he's super valuable here. And then I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Evan Ingram. He kind of makes you a little bit nervous, but he is super talented, and they probably are going to be playing from behind against Dallas, who's not great against tight ends. And Daniel Jones is going to have to hit him, and he is a really big athletic tight end, and he's pretty reasonably priced there. So Evan Ingram, I think, is definitely in play. And then my favorite player, Eric Ebron. He's not really my favorite player, but Eric Ebron is he's a fast, athletic type tight end. So when he actually can catch the ball, sometimes he has a hard time with that. He gets great production, and he's a red zone target as well. He does have to split some of the time with McDonald, but I'm not too worried about that because they're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets as well. So he's getting on the field more. I think if he's getting more comfortable with this offense, they're coming off that pretty much that bye week there. He's a great play, and I know that Philadelphia has been really bad against tight ends, so that's no secret here. So Ebron's in a good position. He's a little bit hard to trust for me in cash though, because I don't know the production. And Pittsburgh has a lot of different weapons to go to. It's not like they have to force the ball to Eric Ebron. They got a lot of good guys out there, but yeah, he's in a good position here. But I think he's a little bit more GPP for me.
Yeah, nice rundown. You hit on some great options there. If you have to save a little money, I don't really advise it this week. You could go down to Drew Sample at 3,700 against the Ravens. That's one way you can get some yardage against that tough defense. And Burrow has shown an affinity for him. He's been a little bit inconsistent, but he does get end zone targets. And you could save a little bit, but I really think spending that extra 300 for Ebron is going to be probably worth it if you're in that price range.
Yeah, there's not too many guys at that really low, price range. I mean, there's some people are looking at Jordan Akins. He's kind of injured this week, but if he plays for Houston, there's a couple guys down there, but it's pretty hard to pay down. And like I said, you shouldn't have to really pay down that much and try to get that pump play tight end this week. E Brown's about as low as you need to go. Yeah, like I said, the only problem with tight ends is just super highly owned. Everyone is it's very highly concentrated with those guys that we discussed there. But so you just hope you get the right one then, because everyone's going to be playing these like 5 or 6 guys, and it's just a matter of which one is the ceiling one, which one's going to hit big. I think Kelsey might be the sneakiest one, because no one's going to want to pay up for his price with all those other blow up guys right around him, right? So Kelsey's interesting as like a GPP play to differentiate yourself if he has one of those 2 touchdown games, and let's say Kittle and Waller have just an average game. So I think could be the interesting play here. As I'm talking about how I think all these guys are highly owned, Kelsey could be lower owned and actually be a differentiator if he has a ceiling game here.
He certainly could. And speaking of ceiling games, let's transition to the team defenses. Who are you looking at and hoping that maybe they'll get a pick 6 or pick one up off the turf and run it back and have a ceiling game for the team defenses?
Yeah, speaking of bye weeks and a team being fresh, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers at home basically coming off a bye week. So you got that whole defense completely healthy and completely rested and ready to attack. And then you got Philadelphia on the other side of that game. Their offensive line is banged up. Carson Wentz has not looked good. I mean, Carson Wentz is pretty talented though, and he has some decent players, so they might be able to score a little bit. But I think Pittsburgh's going to be able to have a lot of sacks and turnovers in that game. So even if Philadelphia is able to score a little bit, Pittsburgh will make up in the other categories there. So really like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense here. The other one I think is pretty interesting. You can pay up to be a little more contrarian, because I don't know that they're going to be the highest owned, is the LA Rams. They're going out to Washington there for the Washington football team. The Washington football team starting Kyle Allen. He's kind of like an interception machine, basically, and he's going to be under heavy pressure from Aaron Donald and and company there. That really good pass rush there, and great talented secondary with Jalen Ramsey and all the other guys they have there. So this guy is going to be under pressure, and they get down and have to pass the ball. That's going to be a great spot for the Rams defense to get sacks and fumbles and interceptions here. So I could see Kyle Allen throwing 3 interceptions against this team and hopefully a pick 6 if I play the Rams here.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are two nice options. I'll throw in the 49ers taking on the Dolphins, and they're without their left tackle. First-round draft pick Austin Jackson, so it's just going to be that much harder for Fitzpatrick to try to stand upright and not turn the ball over. So there's another way you could go with a GPP, but you're not going to save much money. So I do prefer the Steelers for sure. I think they're probably my favorite target here with the rest. So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited for kickoff here, Shane. After breaking this down, I feel like we're well prepared. I want to get these games going, but we do still have to actually fill out our lineups. So we're going to keep grinding and working together on that. And just want to invite folks in one more time. If you'd like to get those lineups, join us as a member at dfscoachtalk.com. Grab a weekly membership or a monthly, or if NFL DFS is your thing, we've got a couple days left on the fall special, which takes you through the end of the calendar year. It saves you on the monthly price. So I'd love to have you all do that. And in terms of social media, you can follow Shane on Twitter at DET Sports Shane. You can find me at Language Olympic. The crew is at DFS Coach Talk. And then our fearless leader, Joe Sarvati, the coach, you can find him at JoeSarvadi. Charity of choice here at DFS Coach Talk, of course, is mambaon3.org. And we want to thank our presenting sponsors one more time here. BetUS.com.pa. Use that promo code Coach Talk. And there are some high-scoring games, and we're going to have a couple more of them to talk about here. We're going to do a primetime show again. Get you ready for the primetime slates, the showdown slates, and the over-unders are substantial there. We got the Vikings, Seahawks, Chargers, and Saints. So that'll be a lot of fun. To make sure to tune in for that. But Shane, any final thoughts here on the main slate?
Yeah, so my final thoughts, I got a prediction here. My team, the Detroit Lions, are going to go undefeated this Sunday because they're on their bye week.
I'm with you on that. Yeah.
And also, so I'm excited about that as a Lions fan. We're not going to lose this week. We are going to be undefeated, and we're also going to be undefeated at DFS Coach Talk, with our NFL lineups this week. So I'm loving it this week.
Yeah, there you go. Rest up and gear up for week 6. So, all right. Well, excellent work here today, Shane. As always, on behalf of Shane Caldwell and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. Thank you for joining us. And be sure to tune in for our next NFL podcast as we look to crush it in DFS.